Adam Slivon. What's going on, Sly? How are you?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thank you for having me on. It's been a long time coming. I'm really excited.
Yeah, buddy. You're making your debut here. This is a big day. It's a big day for you.
Yeah.
Uh, so have you realized like people like calling you Sly? I think you should change. I don't know if your family's going to be okay with it. I don't know if you have to go to downtown Tampa, but I think if you put SLY and put like 5 Ys, Slivon, that could be the thing that really sets you apart here in the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah. I remember when Scott Reynolds hired me on, he thought my last name was Slivon instead of Slivon. So he called me Sly, and ever since then it stuck. So
There you go, man. I love it. All right, big news today, obviously, extensions for Jason Light and Todd Bowles. And I put up a poll, man. Over 78% of Bucs fans are not thrilled with the extension for Todd Bowles.
really,
What were your I know. What were your thoughts on the initial news when it came out and then the subsequent poll with the results there?
I think the first thing that really stuck out to me, Jay, was stability. Like that word in and of itself. I mean, the Bucs this decade have been the most stable that they've ever been throughout the
Right.
50-year franchise history. You have a head coach who every single year the Bucs have improved their regular season record. And I think some credit should be given to Todd Bowles and especially Jason Light, but
Mhm.
Bowles specifically, he's 61 years old, but he's still finding ways to like change. The old dog learning new tricks. He hired that game manager, as you mentioned. He made defensive coaching changes that were much needed across the board. And I think Larry Footback coaching the outside linebackers, getting Mike Caldwell, somebody like Charlie Strong, I think the defense will be a lot stronger. And if it wasn't for all the injuries in the middle of the season, personnel wise, I don't think Bowles was able to do what he wanted to do. Now you're going to start seeing that, and he has security. So I like the Bulls extension, and I think that he's going to finish his coaching career in Tampa Bay.
So why do you think then, Adam, when you look at the situation where, and I brought this up the last couple of weeks, there's still some people that just aren't buying stock in Todd Bowles. And then I put out it's almost 300 people now. It's be one thing if there was 40 people and it's like, oh, you got a bad
Yeah,
batch. That's almost 300 people on Twitter saying that they do not like or do not love the Todd Bowles extension. Why do you think that is?
I think that's because like the first couple of years of his coaching tenure, you saw kind of a stubborn guy, like stuck in his
Mhm.
ways. In 2022, he wasn't changing the recipe that worked for him for so long. You
Right.
saw the defense from 2020 and 2021 regress. And like you saw him keeping his timeouts, standing on the sidelines all crossed. Like fans, I think the first couple of years didn't really see Todd Bowles' personality. And now you're seeing it this offseason. He called out some players at the NFL Combine, like Zion McCollum. He said he kind of takes some plays off, and you're seeing him be more confident. And I
Mhm.
think more fans should get on board with Todd Bowles than in recent seasons because, yeah, in 2022 and 2023, you had reasons where you could be frustrated with him. His use of personnel, where he didn't bench Devin White until like week 14.
Mhm.
But last year, he was held back by the defense being injured, players not performing up to par. Now there's no excuse in my mind
Right.
because Jason Light, he hit on another draft class, in my opinion, got great value and raised the floor of the team. Now it's up to Todd Bowles to really cook with that recipe.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think I love what you said there. There's no excuses for Todd Bowles this year because now
Yeah.
you have Hassan Reddick. You're getting a lot of draft picks on that defensive side. Um, you move on from JTS, and you bring back some of the guys. You got to think another year older for Kalijah Cansey could do him a
Yep.
lot of good. A guy like Chris Braswell, another year for him could do a lot of good. What do you make of, let's go to the defensive draft picks. Who's your favorite draft pick on the defensive side of the ball that Jason Light selected?
In my opinion, I would say Benjamin Morrison. I think with Morrison, the Bucs really got a first round talent who was held back by injuries at Notre Dame. In 2022, he had 6 interceptions. Like he's that kind of ball hawk, if he's
Mhm.
healthy, that the secondary really needed. And a
Right.
great compliment to Zion and Jamel in his rookie season. And then long term, you have a starter. So I think getting him and pairing him with Jacob Parrish, who we saw out there during OTAs and minicamp, he
Right.
impressed. He was already
Mhm.
like getting pick sixes. I think you start with those two guys. And I don't think David Walker will have the kind of impact maybe year one, but man, like every single rep out there, he looks like he can dominate.
Yeah, I think that they did a great job of, and I had this conversation. God, who was it with? I can't remember, but we were just talking about how defense. That's what the Buccaneers needed to focus on in the draft, and then they go with Emeka Egbuka with their first pick. What do you expect from him in year one? Do you think he's going to slot in wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3? How does this get impacted by the Chris Godwin decision? What say you?
For his like career arc, I see Emeka Egbuka kind of being like a Chris Godwin, where
Right.
year one, he might get 50 catches for 700 yards. But as the years go on, as Mike Evans, he gracefully ages, Chris
Mhm.
Godwin plays out the rest of his contract, you're going to see him kind of elevate. I think year one is wide receiver 3, and the year 2, wide receiver 2, arguably. And then he can kind of be like that low end 1, high end 2.
Yeah, I like that. And it just depends on how long Mike Evans is going to play, because it seems like Mike's not going to stop. What are your thoughts? I know a lot of different people have their druthers on Chris Godwin. Where's your level of concern when it comes to him being ready for week 1, and what kind of factor he'll be in the 2025 regular season?
Yeah, when I look at Godwin's timetable for injury, you kind of look at cornerback Bryce Hall on the team.
Mm-hmm.
In week 1 against the Commanders, he suffered a dislocated ankle and a fractured fibula, but back in April,
Right.
he was running full speed. So for me, when I look at Chris Godwin, I think why not next month in training camp? Him out there, maybe not practicing fully, because you kind of want to give snaps to younger guys like Emeka and Jalen, but I can see him participating and being ready in week 1. But the great thing is for Chris Godwin, now that they drafted Emeka Egbuka, there is no rush,
Right.
because it's either going to be Egbuka or Jalen as wide receiver 2, and then wide receiver 3, and you kind of wait for Chris Godwin to give you that boost if he waits a couple weeks to return.
What are your thoughts on the tight end position? We just mentioned earlier on the program that Kate Otten's out there with the TEU guys, which is really cool. I can never see a bad reason to go out there and learning from Travis Kelce and learning from George Kittle and Greg Olsen, just that camaraderie with guys at that position. But
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on him, short term, long term, and your thoughts on Payne Durham and Devin Culp? Because I've been very vocal. I think Devin Culp is a stallion. I think he's an incredible mismatch. We saw it a little bit last year. I love him in the open field. He's got good hands. I just think it comes down to his blocking, but I feel like his ceiling may be the highest out of everybody's, with a guy like Cade Otton, being probably the most well-rounded. But Payne Durham, for a guy that a lot of people said couldn't block, I mean, last year I think he had the best block. I think it was against the Panthers, and cracked back, boom, smacked the defensive tackle right in the face. I think it might have been Derek Brown, if I'm not mistaken. But just all right. Well, all of our tight ends look like they blocked pretty well last year. So what is your thoughts on that spot?
I think when you look at Cade Otton, like the first thing I think of is like Todd Bowles. He likes to say Anthony Nelson's a steady Eddie. I think Cade Otton's a steady Eddie in what he does at the tight end position, because I think he's a jack of all trades. He doesn't do anything exceptionally well, but he does everything good enough. Like you mentioned, the run blocking. Otton was like the 17th tight end in run blocking last year, kind of that middle of the pack. So I think he ranks probably in the top half of the league, but I don't know how high his ceiling is. I think you can be fine with him as a solid starter. But you mentioned Payne Durham and Devin Culp. I think they add some juice really behind Otton, because Otton the past couple of years, Jay, he's played 90% of snaps. He's been that Iron Man. What I want to see this season is maybe Otton takes a little step back, plays 70, 80% of the snaps. Give Payne some run in the red zone. When you need to have a short route, why not let Devin Culp run it? He has 4.47 speed, and he kind of flashed that at the end of the year, averaging almost 18 yards a catch. So Culp, he definitely does have the highest ceiling. Really excited to see him, because at Washington, he didn't really get a chance to shine because they had 3 really good wide receivers. So get Culp out there a little bit, but keep Otton as the main guy and maybe extend him.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. Yeah, Jalen McMillan, Jay Polk, and Roman Tunze. Where the hell are you going to get any balls thrown your way, right? That's crazy. What about the running back position? I want to ask you about that, because I am a firm believer that we should not be trying to throw Rachaad White. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because as I think he's a guy that could have an underrated good season. I am a little concerned, and I know I'm not trying to speak this negatively into existence, but in his rookie year, Bucky Irving had 3 different injuries. He's not the biggest guy. He runs hard as hell. I think it's very important that the Buccaneers are conscientious of not putting too much on his plate, especially early on in the season. And that means relying on Rashad a little bit, especially in those third downs, especially on those second, third, or fourth drives of the game. Because we know that he's consistent. We know we can block, and we know we can catch the ball out of the backfield. What say you about the running back position?
Yeah, when you look at Irving last year, he had 207 carries. And I think for the Bucs, and to really maximize Irving's efficiency, you want to keep him at that workload or even a little bit less, because for as much as Irving and White see the field, there's another guy in the mix there, Sean Tucker, who he had 6 yards of carry last year. You saw the game against the Saints early on when he bulldozed them in the fourth quarter. And I think he has a lot of value. Kind of talking about the tight end position, the running backs all do different things really well. And I think that's where Josh Grizzard can get in his bag a little bit, because you have White, who's one of the best third down running backs, best receiving backs. You can let Irving get his shine, get 10, 15 carries a game, but there's no reason White can't, and maybe Tucker.
If there's any concern for, on the offensive side of the ball, it's the change from Liam Cohen to Josh Grizzard. And, it's so funny. You're, 4 different offensive coordinators, and just being in the press conferences from Byron Leftwich, I'm glad that I don't have to experience that anymore.
No logic.
So freaking hard-headed. Nobody was trying to attack the guy, and he was just so defensive. And then, Dave Canales, an optimist bully, as Baker Mayfield calls him, but even in week 18, he's like, I still don't really know the identity of our offense. And I'm like, the playoffs are next week, dude. So he was a great guy, but just, I always thought he was going to be a better head coach than an offensive coordinator. And then Liam Cohen comes in and does the magical job that he does, not just, performing at a high level, but also running the football and the importance of that. Josh Grizzard, what can silence some of the doubts and quelch some of the fears that Buccaneers fans have from a relatively unknown, a guy that's in his mid-30s, with the hopes of, hey, this offense is going to be just as good, if not better, than last year?
Yeah, with Grizzard, like you look at Dave Canales, he was a first-time play caller coming in. What really helps Grizzard, and I think should lessen fans' concerns, is the fact that he spent time in Miami under different head coaches, Adam Gase, Mike McDaniel, and he spent last year under Liam Cohen. So he's kind of seen and gotten a taste of different offensive systems. He's a Yale graduate, so he's smart. He's going to try to innovate. He doesn't have to do too much, and that's the thing, Jay. They can keep most of this offensive system the same, but then add new wrinkles in. He mentioned watching college tape of Tej Johnson and Emeka Egbuka, taking a couple plays from Ohio State and Oregon and then adding it to his playbook. So I think you're going to see most of the continuity from last year. And you have enough talent where you're still going to average maybe 25 to 27 points a game. You don't need to reach the heights that they did last season if the defense steps up too. So for Grizzard, I don't think there's a lot of concern there. I still think he's going to be a good play caller. And I think as the year goes on, you're going to see them getting better and better, and kind of in 2023 with Canales, get into that groove late in the season.
Is there a player on this team that should be worried about making the 53-man roster?
Trey Palmer.
Yeah,
that would be my guy. I think,
right?
And such a stacked wide receiver room. You saw it. He had a really good rookie season, but he didn't really elevate. And last year, I don't know if it was because of Liam Cohen's offense didn't really have that vertical element. It relied on a lot of efficient throws from Baker Mayfield, but he's the odd man out. And honestly, I could see him getting traded before training camp. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised with that at all. What do you make of the undrafted free agents? Obviously, everybody wants to see Dez and Shiloh make the team. Dez has to obviously drop some pounds. And Shiloh, for him, I think he's in a good spot. He's in a position where I think there is maybe a possibility he can make the team. It's not like he's a wide receiver, right? Where they got 5 or 6 good candidates above him. What do you think the chances are that both those guys make the 53-man roster?
For Desmond Watson, the big thing for him is going to be conditioning. So right now, it's still kind of undetermined where his weight is. But I think to be the most effective, to even see the field, he'll need to get down between like 380 and 400. And I don't know if there's enough value for him just to be on the roster because of the tush push or because of run defense, because you already have 2 really good defensive tackles. And then you have Logan Hall. So I don't really see Desmond Watson making the 53, but I think he makes the practice squad. And for Shiloh, he has to beat out Kayvon Merriweather to be that last safety.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm more excited about JJ Roberts maybe making this team because his skill set, Jay, is in the nickel. He has 4.39 speed. He had 94 tackles for the Thundering Herd last year. I think he adds a lot, and just being a spark and really contributing on special teams, because you look at it and the wide receiver room, there isn't really any special teams contributors outside of Ted Johnson. You need those defensive backs to make the 53-man roster. They need to add value there, and I think that's where Roberts kind of beats out Sanders and some of the other guys.
So what can Shiloh do then? Is there any, because I know a lot of you guys at Pewter Report, you guys love the JJ Roberts thing, and of course I've watched him more intently since you guys have mentioned him, a couple weeks ago. So what can Shiloh do then? What can he do to make this roster? And it's easy to say, like, all right, if guys get hurt and then he gets elevated, I understand that, but what can he improve on? Where can he kind of make up some of that gap?
I think where he makes his mark, and if he wants to make this team, it's going to stem from playmaking. For the Colorado Buffaloes, I think there was one year he had like 4 forced fumbles. He had a pick 6 for like 80 yards. If he does something like that and he really shows that he can be a playmaker throughout the preseason, I think that's how he would make the team. Otherwise, I still think he's raw enough where he'd be a practice squad player, develop behind the scenes, and then maybe make the team going forward.
Do you think he'd stay on the practice squad or go to try to play for somebody else?
Play for somebody else.
Right.
I think he has enough buzz that
maybe, and I think he's
the
talented.
Browns.
I think he's talented. Yeah, the Browns, right?
The Browns, he goes and plays with his brother, and they did that for the last few years. I could see that. I think somebody will take him just because of his name recognition.
Before I let you go, your thoughts on kind of Baker Mayfield and going forward, and what kind of season that he can have, and kind of where you think he ranks amongst the greats in the game right now.
Yeah, I have to completely disagree with what the national media has to say about Baker Mayfield. They're like, he's not a top 10 quarterback. Justin Herbert's the 5th ranked quarterback.
It's crazy, man.
It does not make any sense.
That's wild.
And in my mind, he's like the 6th to 8th best quarterback in football. He's coming off a really good season, Jay, where he was not only efficient, but he had 41 touchdown passes, even sprinkled in a couple rushing touchdowns, showed off his wheels a little bit. I think that he's going to be in store for an even better season, because the supporting cast around him, going back to talking about Todd Bowles and Jason Light being extended, Light has given him all the toys that he needs on offense. He has an elite running game, an elite offensive line, and a wide receiver room that added 2 wide receivers to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Like, that's ridiculous. If it wasn't for such a good running game, he could probably throw for 5,000 yards. So I think Baker's going to have a great year, and then he's going to get a bag maybe sooner rather than later.
Adam Slivon, Pewter Report. Adam lives on. Follow him on all social media platforms. This has been fun, buddy. First time won't be the last, my friend. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Talk soon.
Yep, talk soon. Have a great weekend.
All right, buddy. Good.